America just bombed Somalia weeks after they bombed Iran, and they've killed hundreds of people. Today, the US announced that they've carried out more airstrikes onto a terrorist group in Somalia, near to the capital city of Mogadishu. But something really important, the US has actually been bombing Somalia for months. In fact, they've carried out nearly 60 airstrikes since the US President Trump took office. And you probably didn't know that, mainly because I didn't even know that until a month ago when I made a video on it. Anyways, you might remember, but back in February, the US President Trump announced that he first carried out airstrikes onto a terrorist group in Somalia. I think I made a video on that, but specifically he said, quote, "These killers who we found hiding in caves had threatened the United States." Now since then, he's pretty much been consistently bombing Somalia and carrying out huge airstrikes, but because he hasn't talked about it, nobody's really talking about it. And I actually looked into this to see if the US was telling the truth about it, and they were attacking terrorist groups, and to be fair, it seems like they were. The US said that these strikes have not affected civilians at all, and they've only been attacking terrorist groups. And to be fair, the local reports on the ground in Somalia say the same thing. In fact, around 200 bad guys have been killed in these nearly 60 airstrikes, and in that time, just 4 civilians have been killed. Of course, that's still a lot, except it's nowhere near as many as you would expect. But as the US hasn't really been speaking about this, we don't have much more information, other than these airstrikes took place in western and central Somalia. In fact, these most recent airstrikes took place on a small village called Bari Ray, which is less than 50 miles away from the capital city, Mogadishu, so it's really quite a big deal. But the main point is that for the last 6 months, the US has been carrying out consistent airstrikes on Somalia, just nobody's really heard about it. Of course though, as usual, you can leave me a follow for some more global news like this.